From my earliest memories, the environment has been an important part of who I am. I remember as a child taking long walks in the woods, camping, fishing, bringing home frogs and turtles in my pockets, having pets such as dogs, fish, snakes, lizards, water dragons, and rats. I would capture insects just to keep them for a few hours and study their behaviors. From an early age, I recognized the majesty of nature. Over the years, I have seen that the beauty in nature that brings me such peace is continually threatened by the actions of humans. Global warming, due to the continued use of coal and other fossil fuels, as well as the factory farming industry, are contributing to the destruction of our planet. This disrupts the entire balance of ecosystems, leading to the chain reaction of destruction. An increase in invasive insects devastates trees and plants, leading to a decline in forest land. The decline in forest land leads to dwindling wildlife due to a lack of shelter and food. Drought, flood, and wildfires caused by global warming also lead to the shrinking of forests, loss of wildlife, and inability to grow crops. Additionally, litter and pollution are destroying the air and water that humans, wildlife, and plant life need to survive. There are alternate, clean sources of energy, so why don't we stop using destructive energy sources? Mostly because of politics and economics. The coal and other fossil fuel industries are wealthy and powerful, and money buys influence and largely dictates public policy. Additionally, our politicians benefit from our pro-war methods of controlling the world. So we don't care who or what we destroy as long as we maintain the power. The purpose of my works is to raise awareness of the devastation caused by global warming and to call my audience to take action to end human practices that contribute to this devastation. My works illustrate global environmental destruction and the politics of abuse and war, but also the possibility of hope in life. Artists such as Courtney Madison inspire my purpose. Her works illustrate the bleaching of coral reefs by using gigantic sculptures to show healthy reefs versus bleached reefs. Her audience sees the urgency of saving the coral reefs before they are lost forever. She has influenced me to show the horrors of global warming to raise a sense of urgency. Hieronymus Bosch has also influenced my work. His Garden of Earthly Delights has always drawn me in because of his use of detail and lines. This painting has so much going on in it that the viewer can see something different each time they look at it. Like Bosch, I want to use every inch of my work to illustrate the complexity of the issue. My hope is that when the viewer looks at my work, they cannot take it all in at once, that each time they look at one of my works, they will see different details. George Grosz and Bernard Heisig have also influenced my work with their political focus. They seem to capture the emotion of the political landscape in their works, which is what I've also tried to do. Finally, I'm influenced by Madge Gill and Edward Munch with their use of symbolism. You'll find many symbols in my works. I think that using symbols to capture emotion in a way that more concrete illustrations cannot do can be useful for giving like an extra emotional response. I've chosen to use a variety of mediums for my works. I've included sculpture, collage, ink prints, acrylic paints, and micro pen drawings. I have chosen each specifically to capture a different aspect of the politics of climate change. When I create art, I often start from a place of emotion. I'm feeling something passionately and my art expresses that passion. Usually when I start a piece, I have no idea where it will end up. I just release a lot of emotion into the work, uh, and I create because I have to express what I'm thinking and feeling, and I create to hopefully inspire that same passion in others. My first work, On the Banks of the Ohio River, is a sculpture made of trash that I collected one day at the Ohio River. I arranged the items on a wood board and spray painted them based on the time it takes the items to biodegrade. At one end, you see some wood pieces and cigarette butts, which would take 10 to 20 years to biodegrade. On the other end, you see glass bottles and light bulbs, which would take 1,000,000 years to biodegrade. The purpose is to show that the things we casually toss to the side negatively impact our land for many generations. My next work is a collage. The collage is untitled and is an arrangement of magazine clippings of children, diseased patients, dolls, bones, soldiers, among other things. Broadly, this work is about neocolonialism and the exploitation of rich nations by poor nations. More specifically, like the war in Iraq and Afghanistan that it was mostly influenced by. It is about the trauma of having your hometown and or country torn apart, destabilized, and invaded by those claiming to have your best interests in mind. More personally, though, this work can be about a sense of betrayal in general. 46 bombs a day is an acrylic painting that is a reference to the number of bombs the United States military drops on a daily basis around the world. The two-headed eagle is a reference to the flag of the Roman Empire, while also a reference to the two capitalist pro-war and establishment parties, the Republicans and Democrats. The flag off to the side is a compound design meant to symbolize people or ideas that go against imperial interests. Dissent in general, particularly in the global south where America causes the most destruction and misery. The symbol on it is what is known as the Crass logo, used by the political anarchist band collective called Crass. It is an amalgam of several icons of authority, including the Christian cross, the Union Jack, the swastika, and the two-headed Ouroboros. And it's meant to symbolize the idea that power will eventually destroy itself. Regeneration was a new exploration in my work. For this work, I used Tinkercad to create the image of a tree, one that I knew I could manipulate to show despair and horror, but also life and hope. Mostly the idea of something being more than the sum of its parts. I used a 3D printer to print a relief plate of the tree, and I ink pressed 63 individual prints using a variety of colors and blurring to create trees that have the look of being like brightly on fire. So with all of them together, it's supposed to be like a forest fire concept. Finally, my Micron pen drawing is loosely depicting a cemetery where Earth life is being buried, humans as well as plants and animals, as humanity continues its long, slow funeral service. This is done on a 5-foot by 2-foot board. I've chosen to use dark-colored Micron pens, markers, and ballpoint pens to convey anxiety and dread. I'm taking a lot of influence from Madge Gill as well as Nick Blinko. And because there's a certain element of this work that I'm still trying to figure out how to depict, which is like a more kind of hopeful juxtaposition to the kind of gloomy overall feeling of it. So it's not fully resolved in that way yet. I hope that all of my works convey my messages in ways that evoke emotional and aesthetic responses. I want the viewer to be uncomfortable enough to begin to question their own behaviors. I want the viewer to be motivated to learn more about the geopolitical scale of the problem and how they play a part in it, as well as what they can do to be part of the solution.